Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another behind-the-scenes video with the cast, where we're going to be talking about episode 2, part 1 of The Viral Murders, which I've forgotten the name of. Never mind. Anyway, I'm here with Evadne, and with Jay, and with Demelza, and with Matt, and of course with Natasha. Say hello, everybody, and let us know, how are you? Have you had a good week and all of that sort of thing?
Oh, and also Dylan is here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and Dylan's here. Sorry, I didn't.
Hi.
You're not in the list because I don't know how Zoom works.
Says the person who's in charge of the technical stuff.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I use an RTMP server. I don't know what you're talking about.
This is the man we look to do all our technical gear, and he can't even use Zoom.
So, we've all, with the idea about this was we were all going to listen to the episode, not necessarily as it went out, but before we actually started talking tonight. So, has everybody had a chance to listen to that episode, the backstory episode?
Yes.
Yes.
And okay, well, what are your? Because this is the first time we would have heard it all edited together. So, what are your initial thoughts?
What I thought about the episode was that the editing was superb, and I loved the way it kind of went from one interview to another, and etc. I liked the way the blackmailer was brought in, and everybody, kind of, it really set up some mystery, which obviously was what it's about, and I hope whet as many people's appetites as did me to find out what's going to happen next, and I know what happens next.
Yes. Anybody else have any sort of thoughts that they didn't know really until watching this episode? Because I would listen to the episode. Anybody sort of not have any?
I was personally very shocked about what was going on in the episode. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen.
That's because you wrote it. You never ever read your own writing.
You might think that this is strange, that the person who wrote the thing doesn't actually know what's going on, but over the weeks of recording, we found that this is actually something that happens a hell of a lot. An awful lot. So what about, let's go into that recording process. So, I mean, a number of you who are here were involved with that. What did you remember about actually recording the shows? What were the first things? Because were these done differently? Were these done using Audacity?
That was the first one.
That was the first one, yeah.
Was that the very first one and nothing else?
No, this was definitely clean feed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were your experiences of that thing as we were going into that?
So many technical hitches.
That's true. Very true.
Many.
That's because they left me in charge of the technical aspects of it.
Okay. Mistake.
No, the wonderful thing about Clean Feed was the fact that we could all hear each other. So originally the idea, I think, was that we were going to use Zoom to communicate with each other and use hand-free kits so that we couldn't pick up what everybody else said, so it wouldn't be recorded while we're trying to do our own voices. And then Clean Feed was used as a nice, happy medium, literally as a wonderful recording medium where we could all hear each other and talk with each other. And so whenever the rest of us had to be quiet when we weren't being recorded, it was like being in a virtual version of a studio.
Did you find that easier, or were there other problems introduced because of that, or what were your experiences with that?
To be honest, I found that very, very easy. It was the first time I've ever been on that platform, but I had no problem with it at all. But then again, all the Zoom imagery that I could see was on my phone camera, which I'm speaking to you with right now. And to be honest, I actually found it more realistic because none of the characters can see each other anyway, because they're all in their individual panic rooms. And so I would actually try and ignore looking at the screen where the small square where whoever's talking is talking. And I would just focus on the main screen, which had everybody's individual voice is going up and down on the various levels. Because I thought, well, if my character can't see them, I'm not going to want to see them either. So that's going to give some realism to me. How about
Yes,
Demelza?
voice only was what we would have experienced. But having the Zoom when we were actually doing the interviews was good because you could actually see the person who was interviewing you, which was always Max, of course.
Yeah.
And occasionally there's the scene I did with my sister in the cafe. That was handy being able to get to see her because you did kind of feel that there was a relationship going on. But I totally agree. I used to wipe out Zoom when we were doing the stuff in the panic rooms.
Although it was... Sorry.
I was going to say, no, Demelza, you've had an awful lot to do in this episode. Let's just leave it at that in case anyone hasn't listened to it yet. But how did you find that recording process? Those kind of the early days of doing the Zoom recordings and things. Did you revel in it, or did you find it problematic, or what was going through your head?
This is like my first proper acting gig, really. So I didn't really have anything to necessarily base it off of. So I was very much sort of unsure about everything. So anytime a technical issue or something like that happened, that actually helped me calm down because it made me realise I wasn't the only one who was struggling here.
Did you find it easier to then kind of go with the flow because you weren't going, oh, but this should be happening now and that should be, or, you know, were you just kind of left to your own devices, I suppose, when things are happening around you?
I wouldn't necessarily say, well, they were trying to obviously fix the errors and stuff like that. I guess you could say I was left to my own devices. But what typically happened was when we were recording or doing like the little pre-bit read through before we actually recorded anything, Evadne and Natasha were very good. They gave me like notes or stuff. So I was able to sort of think about what it was they were trying to explain to me whilst they were having the technical difficulties. So it actually gave me more time to adjust.
Okay, and was there anything about the process that you found challenging in any way, or did you just find it fairly easy? Apart from the duvet, which we did mention last week.
Yes, the duvet was its own personal challenge. No, it's very weird because you can't. It's weird. You can't really hear yourself that well when you speak. It's something I hadn't actually really realised before this point. Like, especially when you play your voice back on the recordings, like I heard, I was like, is that how my voice actually sounds and stuff like that? So it was a bit of a weird experience on that one because they were telling me like bits about my voice, and as I was hearing it or trying to sort of alter bits, it was a bit weird.
So
I'm really not explaining this well.
That's fine, Jay. What were your memories of the sort of the second recording of this?
Well, this is obviously my first time at sort of doing an audio play. So for me, it's obviously trying to get the feeling across just with your voice. So, I mean, probably a lot of you all agree. I'm quite animated when I'm saying my lines, but so I just treated it very much like I was on stage, where you have to emphasize things so that the audience can see it. You know, on stage, you don't want to do small movements because it looks even smaller on stage. So that's the way I sort of treated things, really, is to overemphasize so I could get it across through my voice. Technically wise, obviously we had a lot of Daleks all the way through, which obviously in the end production.
And we should explain, the Daleks are the nickname that we gave to technical issues with the audio that happened whilst we were recording.
Yeah.
We didn't have large pepper pot style aliens coming into anybody's houses and holding guns to our head because we weren't doing the work properly. We weren't doing the work properly, but that is a completely different issue. So, Matt, the final episodes, how did the final episodes compare to what you had in your head when you were sort of thinking about this and recording this originally?
I felt by the final episodes that the group were pretty much getting closer and closer to having a complete idea and script and all that lot, and it was really well thought out by the final episodes. I mean, at first, like you said, there was a lot of Daleks, a lot of technical issues like duvets and hoovers for laptops, as we all remember. But overall, though, by the end, I felt we were definitely on the ball, a lot more stronger as a group. I felt everything just gelled. by the
And
end.
what do you think of the final edits of the thing now that because obviously you experienced the recording process? What do you think of the final edits now that that's been taken and changed and processed, and we've got a full actual episode online?
I'm absolutely gobsmacked by what I'm hearing with regards to the final edits. They are absolutely fantastic. The people have done a great job mixing the sound with the Foley sounds and the audio and the music as well. It just sounds absolutely brilliant. And it's interesting to hear scenes that you didn't that you weren't involved in, because you kind of feel like, you know, that's that missing piece of the story that you haven't heard yet, and you're so excited to find out what happens. And with regards to this episode, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a sec, and I will explain my personal feelings on the episode at that point, it just sounded incredible. But yeah, it's just nice to hear other bits that you weren't personally involved in. Really, really good.
So Tash, the detective, obviously, and the writer, what was it? Because obviously we had the introduction to the world, to the characters and everything in episode 1. What did you want to achieve with this the first part of episode 2?
A lot of it's about showing the backstory. So after we put the episode 1 out, the being a much longer episode, as you said, to try and introduce everything into the world, this is the thing, because everything in the show is important at some point. So what we wanted to do with this is sort of give the listeners a sneak peek, almost so that they know something that the contestants in their panic rooms don't know, because this will then tie into the next episode. And I don't really want to go into too much detail without ruining that one, because me and my gob. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it is really giving context to what's going on, because our characters haven't got their memories. So it's much harder to tell that story from a perspective where your characters can't remember anything. So as I was sort of writing it, I thought, well, how can we then get that information across? And one of the things as a writer, I mean, you'll know this, Steve, because you're a writer, and I think Dylan does a lot of writing himself as well. So you'll both understand this one when I say you've got to show, don't tell. So for this, it was really about showing the audience a lot of the backstories, giving them a bit more context, giving them snippets of information from their lives. Another part of it is to sort of encourage that investigation, because there are a lot of clues out there that are hidden, that the audience are going to need to find. And I'm trying to give them just enough to make them want to find this information and look it up and start to ask the questions of, who is this person who's blackmailing, and who is this person who's being blackmailed, and why are they being blackmailed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, of course, I won't ask you, because you are the person who wrote the thing. But for the rest of the cast, what do you think was going through your heads, or the characters' heads, I should say, when the actual episode was going on? Let's start with Demelza, because actually Demelza we've got a couple of interesting little things happening with Demelza's character in this episode. So what do you think your character was thinking during this episode?
It's kind of hard to say to a degree. She's like Tasha said, it's hard to say what's going through the character's head without giving stuff away with the overarching plot and stuff like that. But what was basically going through her head was, I think it's fair to say that at this point it's fairly obvious that Emily's a bit of a dodgy character to a degree. Like, it's obvious that she's playing several sides, but you don't actually know what her motives are. So when this, in the first episode part where she's meeting under the bridge, and her first line is, "Of course it's you," she's taken aback that someone's actually managed to play her, because she's so used to being the one that's sort of the one who's actually kind of more used to being the behind the scenes person. At least
That's
how I
very
had it.
interesting, actually, and obviously there are things throughout the episode that people need to look out for. Evadne, is there something that you think that people should be looking for in the episode that maybe they're going to miss, but is actually in there, just that they should really be listening for in the episode?
Just really listen very carefully, because every one of the interviews and every one of the meetings has a purpose and will give you a clue to the characters and their motives for doing what they do throughout. They all do different things. They all have hidden pasts. They all have very big secrets. And most of them have motives for being the baddie. And so just listen carefully, because you'll hear, sometimes you'll pick up when they're lying, because all of us as characters know when we're lying, when we're telling the truth. And if you listen carefully, hopefully, if we've done our job properly, then our lies will be clear, and therefore the players of the murder mystery will start looking further into the characters to see if they can get to the bottom of who is behind all the dirty deeds.
And for you, what was your favourite part of this episode?
Well, I just had the one scene with my sister, and I kind of enjoyed the cafe scene because I thought I was quite a nice person, as people do, but I was really quite, although
manipulative.
Sorry?
I'd say she was quite manipulative at that point.
Yeah, I think suddenly we see Lorraine as someone who's a little more manipulative and not quite as supportive as she would like everybody to think.
I know just from, because I was there when we were recording the group bits, but I didn't see the sort of the individual episodes coming to it. So this is my first experience of listening to it. The idea that you get of the characters in the second part of every episode, which is where they're in their panic rooms, is completely thrown out by stuff that you're hearing in the backstory. And I thought that was really nice. That was well done. Matt, what was your favourite part of the episode?
I really can't say, because the episode was quite enjoyable all through. I didn't have a personal favourite part. What I personally enjoyed about the episode more than anything was the fact that you got to see the pieces get played in this game of chess, in a way, with each character. So in respect, you get to see their schemes working out slowly. So you've got a character, one character is doing this certain thing to another character, and then that character is doing something else to another character. It was really, really clever how basically it was just sort of like jostling for who's going to be the winner of this little duel in the end between all these characters. It was very, very well presented.
And what about you, Jay? Is there anything in the episode that stood out for you at all?
Well, I mean, I love Ruth, the part that she plays, and I mean, it did make me laugh when there's a bit of banter between me and her, and of course she gets a bit upset with my character, and I have to say that even I wanted to give my character a slap.
I have to say, in the bit with your character, when you said you got my Emily to give it to you, I felt Emily in the back of my head want to go over and slap you.
You had, it was a lovely little scene actually between the two of you today. Have you got any recollection of recording that? How was that? How did that feel when you were recording it? Did you think it would come together the way that it has done, or was there any bits in there that you weren't sure of at the time?
Well, no, of course, because I hadn't heard all the other bits that go into that episode. You see, so it was nice hearing all the other people's interactions with the blackmailer. So it was nice hearing it all put together. And of course, I love all the sound effects that are in there, really bring it alive. Obviously, when we just record, it's almost a very dry experience. But of course, when everything else is put together, it just brings the whole thing to life. Yeah, I love it.
Well, that's it.
And go on.
Sorry, I was going to say we very purposefully only gave each actor their parts of the script.
Yeah.
Trying to sort of keep actors in the blind almost, so that when the script's put together and we can do these sort of interviews after each episode's released, then you actually get a genuine reaction from each actor.
Yeah. Dylan, what parts of the episode were you, let's say, really pleased with? If there's anything in there that you thought stood out, and what do you think about your character now after that kind of, just listening to that a bit, what would you say about your character?
In answer to the first question, I would say that just to follow on from Tash with saying about how each actor was given their own version of the script, so you only knew what your character knew, or you'd learned what your character knew and what they experienced later on. So it was really, really interesting to hear Demelza's character and what was kind of her story and what happens to her. And you think, I thought she could be nicer than that. She's actually quite manipulative. But in terms of Blue, shout out for my character because he's my favourite one.
I have to say, my favourite line of the whole thing was actually one of Blue's.
Oh, cool.
Which line was that?
It's the sheer incredulousness you put on the what during the episode. I just love it so much.
Oh, and it's the how.
Yeah, the how. Sorry, that incredulous line. I just love how sort of you are about that.
My character, I've always, since learning about Blue and who he really is and what he's all about, I've always had him down in my head. He's a mardy, selfish git, isn't he? And he obviously loves to think of himself as a big fish in a little pond, I think. And the fact that someone's outwitted him, and even he's found himself in a position where he's now having to find information for the detective, for whatever ends that is. I know what it is, obviously. I've read the script, darling, but I can't tell you. It's just that, his incredulousness when it comes to things not working out properly, or things working out in a way that he couldn't foresee. I really enjoyed those. I like to think of it as that he's the voice of my annoyed self. If that makes sense.
Okay, now as we go through the shows, we're also touching on various different issues that come up in everyday life. This particular episode was focused in part on bullying, and I did want to ask before we finished up, has anybody had experiences with bullying before? Is there anything that was in the episode? Was there anything that kind of spoke to you in that respect at all?
Not in my adult life. I think I only ever really had bullying properly when I was in school. But it was the usual kind of bullying, name calling, or being picked on for being a geek, that kind of thing. But the issues of bullying that we come across in the episode, I have not experienced those. So
anybody else? Has anybody had any sort of experience with bullying at all?
Only, I would say myself, but only in my childhood. After my father sadly died in a car crash, then I was severely bullied actually at school, but not in my adult life, only in school. So yeah, slightly different.
So as a cast then, what advice would you give to people who might be in that similar sort of situation, as we've seen in the episodes and of course in your own personal experiences?
Always tell someone.
Yeah.
Don't keep it to yourself. Don't think you can cope with it yourself.
Yeah.
Always tell someone. Always. Even if it's your best friend or your spouse, or you need to tell someone.
If you can,
I think today is very,
evidence.
very different. Today is, in this day and age, it's a lot more talked about than it was years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago, it was very much, it kept quiet. People didn't know who to turn to really, and a lot of the time when you did turn to someone, they wouldn't listen and didn't do anything about it. So in today's day and age, it's definitely come on leaps and bounds, and it is something that people do take seriously, whether that be in the school or the workplace, or anywhere in life.
Yeah.
My
me-
advice would be get evidence. Like if someone's yelling or shouting at you and they've been doing it several times, then like just have a phone in your pocket or something and reach in and press record, because then they can't refute it later when you try to bring it up. You've got actual physical evidence.
I mean, for me, the aspect of bullying is quite close to my heart. I'm neurodiverse. I've got dyspraxia, and growing up, I was quite heavily bullied because of that. I was just the weird kid, and so and I think Jay touched on it a little bit with I spoke out. I tried to speak to people, and the only thing that I got told was, "Oh, just ignore it. Just ignore it." And one of the things that all that did was just let them get away with it. My aunt gave me some fantastic advice, and she said to me, just don't give them the reaction that they want. First of all, learn who you are. Learn to accept yourself, faults and all. Learn to laugh at those faults, because if you can laugh at yourself, no one can ever laugh at you. They can only ever laugh with you. And sometimes standing up for yourself is hard. And it doesn't always mean shouting back, because that doesn't work. I tried that. Sometimes it's just going, okay, and walking away, or laughing, and making a joke about the situation. And as Avadni said, telling someone who you trust. And if someone tells you that they're being bullied, please believe them. Please listen.
That is, I think, very important, and possibly what we should be ending on. That there are a lot of problems. In fact, there are a lot of issues that will be brought up in this show, where a massive part of getting over it is to talk to somebody about it, to actually start the situation. So if you've locked 9 people into a room, don't forget to tell somebody about it. But for now, that is it for this little behind-the-scenes segue, shall we say. Thank you very much to the cast who are here tonight, Avadni Dhillon, Natasha Demelza, Jay, and is there anybody else? Because Matt is here as well. Somebody drops off the list that I've got on my screen. Whenever. Anyway, yes, the person at the bottom is. I think I've met him. No.
I'm sure you have.
That is it for tonight's show. Thanks very much for coming along. If you would like to just leave a comment below, then do, on any of the issues that we've raised on this. Also, there's more information on the website, viralmurders.co.uk. Also, don't forget to leave a like on the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to visit the Facebook group and join up with that if you want to do an awful lot more with the murder mystery thing. We'll be back in couple of weeks with the next episode behind the scenes thing, but until then, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you then. Bye everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.